Well, welcome to another version of Sleepy Eight rapid fire questions. I know Devin will be speaking to me about, I guess, Métis cultural stuff. I don't know. I don't prepare this list. This is a list that he comes up with. So it could be anything on there. It could be about aliens for all we know. But shoot.
All right. Yes. Totally set up by me. It's good to be back for starters. Let's start off with what are the differences between treaties and scrip?
Well, treaties are certainly the First Nations relationship with the Crown, especially the historic ones, the ones Treaty 1 through 11. I think there's Treaty 1 through 12. But those are the historic treaties and the relationship with the Crown based on the original proclamation that was done in the 13 colonies in the States and the Royal Charter, which is UNDRIP is based on that too. But it is about relationships. So, that, and then when there was time for the Métis, and I do believe the Métis was even before Treaty 1, about 8 months when they had their first agreement. Then it was just an agreement to occupy the land. And then after that, the scrip system was implemented. So we do believe the scrip policy and the scrip commission had ways of dealing just with the Métis. And I know the First Nations, I think, took scrip, but a majority of those scrip applications and the land title was all about negotiating the Métis to actually live there. Well, little did we know it would become the largest land swindle in North America, and they ended up extinguishing land title for the Métis. So treaties kind of placed, through the Indian Act, First Nations on the reserves, and the Métis, for instance, would work with scrip to get those agreements for that land, and then pretty soon they were landless, had nowhere to go. And that's how they ended up on the road allowance, which is basically the ditch. So the 25 meters from the roadway to the fence line was the only place that Métis could occupy till about 1970. So.
And when did that start?
1870, around when they were getting the treaty signed, yeah.
Wow, that was a while.
Yeah.
And want to go into how it was such a swindle, the scrip system?
Well, they made that system so bureaucratic, it would have been nearly impossible for a Métis land occupier at that time to get the land title. So, and then they would, government sometimes were very keen on, or business people or real estate people would get a speculator out there to disguise themselves as a Métis person and sign on to the land and give the land to them. Otherwise, some politicians out there would introduce legislation that would prohibit Métis to apply for the land too. And then also, sometimes they would say, go to this office, there's a certain deadline, and if you didn't make it to that office in time, there would be a speculator sitting outside signing for that land too. So there was a lot of things that sort of happened all at the same time to make sure that the Métis did not get that land.
They made it very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How about we talk about Métis women and their kind of role in the community?
That's a very good topic. And I do believe, I'm not sure if it's passed on through our genealogy or DNA, but it seems like our Métis women are always been the cultural leaders, probably since the fur trade. They were the ones that were teaching the young ones because they were home with them while the man was away doing whatever. And usually European, so he was off with his buddies. They were teaching them language, medicines, the harvesting, how to grow plants, like everything, right? But, if you take a picture of our current Métis knowledge keepers that we have in our communities, that's majority are women. And they continue to teach the young people and teach our community on who they are. So that's it's a very good topic to have. And then a lot of them are the Métis leaders too. I shouldn't not mention that, but I would say a vast majority of the politicians that we have are Métis women.
And a lot of the candidates for this upcoming election are women, right?
That's right. So I know that there's no reluctance to step forward. They know their culture, they know their heritage, they grew up that way, or there was some activism thing that's injected into their genome, and all of a sudden they're just out there and they want to lead, right?
Yeah, that's interesting because you were saying First Nations is majority men leaders.
Well, that's what we kind of see, but I think it's starting to change a little bit. You do see some women chiefs out there. I mean, I think the national chief that I know she's in the media for other reasons, but it's common ground. I think a real, like for us traditionally, it was the Métis women that kind of led.
Interesting. Quick pause from the questions. You do have a business mixer in September.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about this one. This one is with Vitreo Group. They run a nonprofit and foundation consulting group, and they want to host one, and pretty excited to do that here at the club. Hopefully we'll get about 150 people.
And that'll be at Petroleum Club?
Yeah.
Which you've done a couple at now.
That's right. So we've, I've been accustomed to doing them with the region at the Lougheed House. I know that'll continue. But I've opened it up to a more Indigenous business mixer where you have First Nations and Métis and then partners. We encourage, like, you don't have to be Indigenous to come. And if you're a company, send your people. And if you want to meet some Indigenous folks in our business community. So that's why we do it here at the club.
Nice. And you think the M&A is going to keep doing them after the transition?
I hope they do. The Lougheed space is very nice.
Yeah.
And we worked really hard to work with Joe Lougheed and the group there to get it going and hopefully encourage Joe to get his memory card again. But he will. I have a feeling he will. But I think mixers are very, very important. Doesn't matter where we do it and how frequent it is. And we're not doing it on the same night. It's totally fine. People come and get free food and stuff. And, they have their sponsors. We have the sponsors. We try to work with them as much as possible in terms of the sponsorship, so we're not overlapping too much. But other than that, I mean, it's a great way. If you are a potential sponsor, let us know too at the email below. If you are willing to sponsor. The Petroleum Club is really good at waiving the rental for us, the room minimum. That's what they call it. And so because we're Indigenous, and they said, well, no, we'll come in and occupy the room and pay for the food and your entertainment and, give us an invite and that's it.
Yeah, that's really nice of them. Mm-hmm. There's no negative to having more events, and the community loves the business mixers.
Yeah.
So.
And then also the Petroleum Club for us, does have a wide open door for Indigenous business. And we want to encourage that we can use these spaces. And people have an assumption that, that's a very white area and, for white businesses. But it's not really. The Petroleum Club is sort of the meeting ground for everybody, right? So we want to encourage more people to come. And certainly I think we sort of on the environmental scale, certainly Indigenous folks are very on the high level. But, this is an opportunity to ask questions to companies, too, that want to come and be there to answer, and I think that's important, too, that we're there to speak to one another.
Yeah, and we've done quite a bit of work here, and it seems diverse to me. Every time we're in here, it seems more than diverse enough, in my opinion. So that's nice of them. Cool. Well, that's something to look forward to. And what day is that on?
September 27th. So 4 to 7. We always start right when people shift ends downtown at 4 o'clock. So, and then go right till 7. So then they skip the traffic and get fed.
That's always nice. Cool. All right. Let's go with the Stampede just happened. I know we both went to it. I think quite a few quite a few of the days. Is
Well,
there
I
any,
probably remember more than you do. But
maybe we don't need to go into that. Is there any Métis stuff that happens at the Stampede, or is there any relationship between the Métis and the Stampede?
well, the relationship with the Stampede and Indigenous is the Treaty 7 families. And I'm not sure the Treaty 7 nations, really have a say in that. But from what we know, even the Elbow River camp that's there, certainly with the Treaty 7 families, and then they have their teepees, which they've been setting up since that relationship was even established, which I think was at the very beginning. And what we view that area is the historic piece to it, which is, just on the hillside where Ramsey is, there was a Métis homestead there before Calgary was around. And where the Saddle Dome sits currently was where Baptiste Danouse's farm was. And so we know through our history where our people were. And that's even on a CPR map that we find in like 2 years before Calgary was even established, incorporated. There's a CPR map that shows all the Métis homesteads.
Oh, interesting.
Here, yeah. And so we know where these farms kind of were, right? Whether or not Stampede one day will acknowledge the Métis presence, I don't know. But they offer us, discounts to our families and that thing as an Indigenous thing, and we're cool with that, I guess. But nothing really Métis event wise just yet.
That'd be nice if they could add one event, considering how many events happened during the Stampede.
Yeah, absolutely.
That shouldn't be that big of a problem to do. So
yeah, they have that fort behind what they call it, right beside the new BMO Center, but just have us in there.
Yeah.
Since we're fort related.
Yeah, that would work. You went with your family a few of the days?
Yeah, we always take advantage of like family day, and so the kids can see the goats and the little horses and stuff, but
the agriculture,
not ride them. They want to ride them, but
I don't think that's allowed.
No, I don't think you can really go near them.
Yeah.
We're pretty respectful of the guys who are there watching them, right?
Yeah. Do you do the rodeo or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. And the chuck wagons. Mostly the chuck wagons.
I have never done either of those.
Really?
And I have lived here my whole life.
Well, I think last year was the best tickets I ever had to the rodeo. I could literally reach down and touch the head of the ropers, right, before they're heading out.
Wow.
Right in the infield and everything, right? But, yeah, right through the alleyway. So, the barrel racers were just running right beside me. But,
wow, that's cool. I'll have to check it out next year.
Yeah, maybe we'll get those tickets.
That'd be nice. Cool. And tell me about Métis economics.
Well, I think for us, it's always been, we're kind of born out of the economics, even our ancestors, right? I mean, we even got to, when the Europeans kind of came over and in order to survive, married into a lot of these First Nation families and did that protocol there. And then from the marriages, they had children. And usually the European men went back to Europe when they were done their service, and the wife was left alone with them. And then sometimes the wife couldn't go back to her First Nation communities because some of these children that were mixed weren't allowed to really go there either. So they kind of over generations formed their own society, right? So we're kind of born out of economics. And even in fact, the fur trading companies did the marriages for us. There was before there were churches around. So, and then one thing that the fur trading companies did was they go to the families, and people would write down to the last chickens or cows and all that stuff. And they considered that equity in their company too, right? So, we were kind of born out of it. And ever since then, would either work in the fur trade, sort of be the bridge between companies and traders and First Nations, be those translators too. So Métis folks have a language called Michif that incorporates a lot of languages because of that, because of our trading areas, as well as we could do that. We learn these languages quite affluently and kind of speak them. Every once in a while, you'll see a Métis person that can speak Cree fluently or Ojibwe, or see them speaking Blackfoot even, right? So we're very accustomed to learn those languages for that reason. So we're kind of born out of trade, even our cultural stuff. We kind of, I wouldn't say borrow, but certainly sponged into that other cultures, like in different territories. And then pemmican, certainly being a First Nation food, we survived on that. And then bannock, which is a Scottish food, bringing that to the Western Plains too, through our Scottish Métis.
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting facts I've learned this whole time, is that bannock is Scottish, because I had no idea. So that's very interesting to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up on bannock. Little did I know it was a Scottish meal, because we were all French Métis, right? So yeah, you just never know where these things derive from.
Yeah. And that's what Canada's supposed to be. We're supposed to be this very multicultural country.
Yeah.
And the Métis kind of embody that.
And there's theories around economics in Métis, because sometimes news travels with us. And even our land surveyors that work for Hudson's Bay Company, for instance, or Northwest Company, that were in certain areas, would find these oil deposits, write it down, and then that information would be heading into those companies. And when the fur trade ended, it didn't mean investment dollars stopped in those companies. They still had it. They just started putting it in agriculture, and then they put it in the railway company, and then they put it into oil and gas. So you kind of see that when the breakup happened from Winnipeg, which was the central economic base in Western Canada, it was Western Canada at that time, moved and sprouted into Calgary and where we are now. So that's why you see a lot of businesses that are here, these buildings. But people really have to look at who started a lot of these companies too, because we do have the history of that too. Yeah. And whether it was Métis dollar that went into it, we kind of know that too. So we've been doing business for a long, 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 long time.
Yeah, we have a lot of Métis-owned businesses, and we've had a few of them on the podcast.
Yeah, so we kind of look at Métis historically. We weren't really confined to that Indian Act, and some of our Métis ancestors fought against becoming a part of that too, for a reason, because they knew what possibly could happen to them. So they just remained hidden, but they didn't really hide their money. They started investing in companies and building them. Yeah, and there's a real true history around, Red River Métis, where Riel kind of supported this political government, which was great, and made agreements with Canada. But then there was Métis people that were opposed to Riel, that people don't realize. There's a history there too, and a story, very complex story that happened. And where did all that economic money, where did it actually go? Where's the trail?
For next episode.
Yeah. I mean, I could get into this for days, right? But it's because I've been taught this. I always knew this growing up. Even when I was doing my classical ballet stuff, I kind of knew. Like, I knew I was different, and I knew my history.
Yeah, you definitely know your history. That's for sure. Wealth of knowledge. Awesome. Well, we are going to keep doing these podcasts. We would like to hopefully have another transitioning officer come in to provide the community with some more information on the changes, because I think we still don't know a lot. Yeah. But the vote is coming up, and then hopefully we can provide some more answers on what changes there will be.
Yeah, I think at every point in time, like we're here for, us as Métis folks who kind of go to these workshops and been immersed into it. I think a real valuable asset to companies, to government, for even our First Nation cousins who have questions, right, about this self-government.
Yeah.
And what that'll look like, right? So we encourage them to speak to us or just reach out to us at any point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is all the questions for today. Yeah, anything else you want to finish off on?
No, not really. I mean, I know there's questions about Ontario still, Métis Nation there, and certainly those historic communities that's already been in Ontario, but them introducing new ones. You know, it's kind of, even for me as a Métis person who know my history, and a lot of our agreements are based on historic Métis Nation communities. It's really tough for me to go, well, yeah, because when you start incorporating new ones, then new ones will follow further than that, right? So I don't want to really say that I petition for them, to be quite honest, because I really want to make sure our historic Métis Nation communities are looked after as a primary, and then maybe move on to the secondary ones after that. But that's the way I view it. And really, we're not really there for the historic ones yet until that modern day treaty is signed.
And the line does have to be drawn somewhere, unfortunately. So
for now, yeah,
that's fair.
But anyways, I mean, thanks for the questions. If there's not any more, that's great. I can go home finally.
Yeah.
But no, welcome to another episode of Sleepy 8 Métis Podcast. Hit subscribe if you want to see it. Maybe we'll see Devin in the future on camera. I don't think he likes to be on camera, but he wears glasses. He's dressed nice. I don't know if he's looking for a job. Probably not, but
he could be lying to you guys. I'm not even here. I'm AI.
This could be AI. I think as we're headed. I was recommended to try it out, and I put in a few subject items, and it wrote a whole letter for me. I thought, oh my gosh,
it's awesome.
It's pretty creative, but of course I got to go through it. But yeah,
I've used it for the podcast a little bit.
Oh, really?
And I used it to write a cover letter for a job because I needed to apply to a job really quickly, and I didn't have time. So I quickly used it to write me a full cover letter. It was awesome.
Well, yeah, I think who's it? Will Sasso. And he has a partner too. They do a podcast where they get AI to write all their subjects.
Oh, yeah.
And they follow everything.
Yeah, it's probably good.
Well, yeah.
It's pretty crazy, and it's just going to get better. So,
well, the aliens will be here in a couple months. So, 2027. That's what they said. Was it 2027 or 25? Yeah.
I thought they were already here.
Well, they're already here, but yeah. But I think they used to anally probe you guys. Now they'll just get our information from the phone, so it's a lot easier for us, I guess.
We could get one on the podcast.
Yeah.
And hopefully they do the old way of probing instead of the phone thing.
Yeah.
That'd be ideal.
But yeah, I think they're responsible for TikTok. I think that's how they're getting all our info.
Good for them. I like TikTok.
Yeah.
I also need to start posting some clips of ours on TikTok. Maybe
you should.
Maybe this week.
Yeah. Maybe 2 or 3 minutes, a little excerpt.
Yeah. I think I will.
Anyways. Well, is that it?
Yeah, I think we strayed out of the path there a little bit, so.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta.